HVAC operations to improve comfort, which is the #1 issue in all buildings, hospitals, hotels, office, I don't care the building type. Comfort is the #1 priority. The occupants of every building need to be comfortable. If they're not, you're behind the 8 ball running buildings and you're gonna have the phone ringing off the hook. When I was the chief engineer of the cash register building here at 7th, right across the street, big 52-story cash register, I worked for Heinz way back then. I was in my late 20s and 30s when I ran that building. And I'm telling you, it was a challenge even then to find good people 30 plus years ago. It was a challenge even then. Every industry, doctors, lawyers, developers, building engineers, property managers, whoever, I don't care what the job is. There are people that are really good at it and passionate, and there are people that aren't. It's really that simple. People that are really serious about the bet. When you go to get dental implants, which I've had my share of, okay? So I asked my dentist 10 years ago when I got my first few implants in my mouth. And I asked my regular dentist, he wanted to do the implants himself. I said, well, how many have you done? Okay, this ties into my presentation. Pre-qualifying anybody that does anything. What are your qualifications? Mr. Dentist, what is your qualifications to do my implants? How many have you done? You want to know what he told me? This is my regular dentist. He's done 5. Do you think I had him do my implants? God, no. I never went back to him again as my regular dentist after I heard that. I was insulted that he's trying to sell me implants. He's done 5. So you know who did my implants? You know how many implants they did? 40,000. When they did mine, they had done 40,000. Okay, there's a major point here to this that I'm trying to make. I don't care if you're hiring a roofer, HVAC company, security company, cleaning company, general contractor, mechanical contractor, makes no difference. A doctor, a lawyer, okay? You hire a lawyer, you're gonna hire the worst lawyer and lose your case? No, when you're selling your house, you're gonna hire the worst broker to sell your house, and now you don't get as much money for your house? No, you need to find the best broker. How do you do that? How many houses have you sold? How much did they sell for? How long have you been doing this? Pre-qualify. Everybody that does anything for you, pre-qualified. Major, major point in my presentation. Okay, Kelly, let's go to the next one. So here's the summary of my presentation right here. I don't read off slides, I know better than that, right? Nobody likes anybody presenting that goes, hiring qualified, diverse staff and those with great potential. I'm not gonna do that. You guys read the slide, okay? You guys read the slide, that's what we're gonna talk about. Go ahead. Okay. I tried to hit a little bit of all these, but obviously I didn't. But this one here, I had breakfast this morning at 7 o'clock in Castle Rock with G.E. Johnson, which is a huge general contractor. My company, eCube, we commission 70% of my business, and we're nationwide. 70% of I own most of the company, and I have several employees at home too. I've had 0 staff turnover for 8 straight years right now. Through the pandemic, I was hired. Again, I'm not bragging, but my God, to keep people, the building engineer issue, right? To keep people, I had one of my employees called me 2 weeks ago. I was in Chicago on business 2 weeks ago. I get a call on Friday at 5 o'clock. Hey, Joe, I need to get on a video call with you. No agenda, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? So we got on a video call. It's 5 o'clock on Friday. And he says, you know, you told me 7, 8 years ago when you hired me that if anybody ever came after me and offered me more money to talk to you first before I say anything to anybody else. I said, yeah, I could say that. And then he told me what they offered. I said, no problem. He said, well, we can talk next week and work this out. I said, no, finalize everything right now. And boom. You know, even why would I let an employee leave? Of course, unless you had a bad employee. I don't have any. I literally don't have any. Like dead weight or whatever you want to call it. I don't have any. Okay, I have a 25-person company. I can't have dead weight. If I had 5,000 people, maybe I could have a little dead weight here and there. 25 people, 0 dead weight. Can't have it. Right? And he's with us. And my clients love this guy. There's no way I'm letting that get away. I hired a young woman 3 years ago who has an undergrad degree in math and a master's in architectural engineering with an emphasis in analyzing energy of buildings, doing all the calcs. She's brilliant. You can't ask people how old they are when you hire them, but I'm guessing she's been with us almost 4 years now. She's probably 30, 31. Brilliant, right? And I told her, the first day she started, Catherine, anybody ever calls you, any competitor, I don't care, you talk to me first. Don't accept the job. That's one reason I have no turnover. People, you got building engineers you don't want to lose? I'm not kidding. Or any vendor, you have any employees you want to lose, you need to have that conversation with them. Trust me, in this labor market, or you're going to lose darn good people, and you know what a hassle that is to replace them, if you can even find somebody to replace them. Okay, let's go to the next one. Hiring diverse staff. This is a big deal. All right, we're not trying to make numbers. Hire this many women, this many African Americans, this many Asians, whatever, right? No. This many Hispanics, no. We're not trying to make numbers. Again, the most qualified. But let's get a good pool. Let's get several women in the pool. Let's get several people of color in this pool. If the whole pool is white people, hey, I'm a white guy. I can say this. I am a white guy, right? Obviously. My wife, by the way, is American Indian and Hispanic. 37 years. American Indian and Hispanic. Wonderful. Very different from me. She grew up in this little tiny town in southern Colorado. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. Night and day. Right? So when I say you need to enlarge that pool, and you've got to be conscious about doing this. This pool isn't going to happen this way if you're not conscious, saying, you know what, everybody I'm talking to is a white man. Okay? Now, I know this is a political issue today, but listen, this hit my radar about 5 years ago. I had clients saying, Joe, women clients, very brilliant women clients that run hospitals and build hospitals, okay? And, you know, I have good relations with my clients. Lots of meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner. I'm out to eat constantly. And people go, Joe, I don't eat that much, but I'm out to eat a lot. And she straightened me out. She said, Joe, this whole minority-owned business thing. There's minority-owned businesses, right? MBE, Minority Business Enterprise. Everybody should know what that is. MBE, Minority Business Enterprise. Owned by 51% or greater ownership by a minority individual. That's an MBE. WBE is a woman business enterprise, woman-owned business enterprise. So I'm looking for all these MBE and WBE firms to work under me as kind of a sub-consultant. Do part of our work. And then I'm looking for women to hire in-house and people of color to hire in-house. And she straightened me out. She said, Joe, you're not doing a very good job with this. Most of your people are white, most of your people are men. All right? And she straightened me out 4 or 5 years ago. And I said, Victoria, thank you. I needed to hear that from somebody. And this gal is sharp. MBA out of Loyola. She runs all these hospitals up in Wisconsin. Aurora Health, biggest healthcare provider in the state of Wisconsin. Advocate Health, biggest healthcare provider in Illinois, bought Aurora. She runs dozens of major hospitals. Incredible. And thank God she said that to me. I was on the phone calling her from San Francisco. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was on the phone in San Francisco talking to her, and she was in Chicago. And she straightened me out on the phone. Joe, you got to get your act together. You can get a competitive advantage if you get your act together on this. It's the right thing to do if you get your act together on this. So here we are today. This is a big political issue today, right? Well, how do we get there? Because people haven't been conscious. Fill these building operator positions. Women, people of color, not just white people. That pool has got to be enlarged somehow. You get 20 openings for one person. That's crazy. We enlarge the pool, maybe we have a 2-to-1 ratio rather than a 20-to-1 ratio. Maybe that's how we get there. Enlarge the pool. Lack of blue-collar tradespeople. This is a national, I should have triple underlined that and bolded national emergency. This is a national emergency. And here's what I'm one person. I can't do much. I'm one person. out of 360 million in the US roughly, right? 1%. But I'm trying to do my part. This picture is one of my podcast guests, Marcus Weldon on the left, African-American, grew up in the roughest section of Detroit. That's his pastor at his church, and I'm forgetting his name, Alonzo Bell. This is a big shot from Train Company, okay? This was about a month ago. And what Marcus is doing, and he and I are doing several things together, that is nothing to do with my business. I'm not making a penny, I'm not trying to make a penny, I'm not trying to make a name, I'm just trying to help solve this national emergency and do my part. We are thinking big. Marcus started a trade school that started a few weeks ago in Detroit for single mothers, all African-American, single mothers, had baby unexpectedly, and now they're kind of stuck, right? Now what do they do? I'm a single mom, I'm 16, I'm 17, 18, now what the heck am I gonna do? Not a good situation. We need to help. There's jobs for everybody. Everybody can have a job in the US. Everybody can have a job. He's got 8 single moms in this program. It started last week. 2 months of technical training. This is pre-trade school. It's kind of a preliminary trade school. Expose them to welding, piping, electrical, refrigeration, everything. 2 months. Daycare right there in the same building. Mom's transportation to the building, so they provided transportation, because that's a huge barrier for a lot of people, especially people that are very underserved, right? They provide transportation. Marcus did all this with his pastor. 2 people. I've donated money personally and my company to help them. I encourage any of you to Redeem Detroit's the name of the organization, redeemdetroit.com, I think, or .org, Redeem Detroit. And here's a wonderful guy. He's written some books, almost went to prison for 40 years, uncalled for, defended himself with a gun. Okay, didn't go to prison, thank God. Now look what he's doing. So this is the kind of guy I love, because I've aligned with Marcus and we've aligned together, and we're very different people, but we're really not that different. The more I talk to him, the more I relate with him. I grew up in the south side of Chicago, very rough area. He grew up in Detroit. We have so much in common, it's not even funny. He's an HVAC guy. He used to run Macomb Community College, second largest community college in Michigan and the whole state. He used to run it, all the HVAC, 50 some buildings. I mean, look at how young he is. He's in his 30s. This guy's amazing. So he sets up this program for single mothers. This is the kind of stuff we need to do. Marcus and I are talking about, he's already talking to the ex-mayor of Detroit, who's a friend of his, about helping us with an awareness campaign to raise awareness nationally through advertising. We're trying to get funding, millions of dollars funding, to have a national advertising campaign to get the word out to parents. Don't just send your kids to college. If a parent has 3 kids, okay, typical parent, let's say they have 3 kids. 2 of them are going to do great in college, 1 of them maybe not, but they still push that 3rd one to college. They don't know what else to do. Push them to college. Get them out of the house, get them to college, maybe it'll work out. No, that 3rd kid, push them to trade school. Push them to trade, not push, then you're not pushing. This kid might have an aptitude. Any kid, men and women. Let's get this word out. So we're talking about LeBron James, celebrities to help us get this word out. Big name celebrities, the ex-mayor of Detroit. The ex-mayor of Detroit, by the way, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal a week ago about this same person that's friends with Marcus that we're starting to talk to. Detroit had minimal problems last summer during the riots. You know why? Chicago had major problems, where I'm from, like worse in the country, with riots and looting and just blew up last summer, Chicago, right? Detroit didn't have that problem. You know why? Because the mayor went out to all the neighborhoods and calmed everybody down and said, hey, we'll get through this. It's a bad thing that happened up in Minneapolis, super bad thing, but don't go crazy and tear the city up. Let's just calm down. Literally went out and calmed everybody down. Huge article in the Wall Street Journal a week ago about this. That's one person did that, right? Okay. Go out to all the trade schools. There's a lot of other stuff here. Reach out to military veterans. Open the labor pool to diverse, underserved, disadvantaged talent. We could have people with disabilities running buildings. Where things are going with analytics and automation and fault detection and diagnostics / analytics. Okay, person in a wheelchair studies HVAC, hits the books, knows HVAC on the BAS, optimizing, saving energy in a wheelchair. Should be a bunch of people in wheelchairs doing this, a bunch. Military veterans in wheelchairs, right? This has not happened yet. Maybe a little bit here and there, but we need a lot of that to happen. And you people need to hire them. They don't, you know, there's no up and down the ladder. Plenty of stuff at the keyboard that people can do in this day and age, right? Up and down the ladder? No, of course they can't do that. Hire more women, talked about that. And let's go to the next slide. How am I doing on time there, Kelly?
Good. We got a half hour.
Okay, good, good. Any questions anytime, just hand, whatever, anybody, anytime, okay? Or we can save them for the end, I don't, either way. Study and implement basic HVAC operations. Okay, we're trying to improve energy storage for us. We're trying to improve indoor air quality, which we should have been doing way before the pandemic. Okay, indoor air quality has been an enormous priority in operating buildings forever. Ever since the windows closed on buildings, right? We didn't have operable windows and we sealed them up, which happened a long, long time ago. Indoor air quality management via the HVAC system has been critical for many, many decades. And all of a sudden, boom, pandemic, everybody's freaked out about it. Every building type's freaked out about IAQ, right? So it's a huge, big deal today. So we got to get back to the basics of HVAC. None of this advanced stuff. Everything's fundamentals. When I was a car mechanic, fundamentals. Here's how an engine works. Here's how transmission works. Before we got it, you know, the 3 months of engine overhauls, 3 months of transmission overhauls, just to give you an idea what we did. This is 7 hours a day, 5 days a week. Can you imagine 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, tearing engines apart, putting them back together, then going to work afterwards? That's what we did, everybody. It was unbelievable. My Lord, when I finished trade school, I knew cars. That's like 10 years of advancement for an 18, 19-year-old person. All of a sudden, all these mechanics I'm working with when I finished that were 10 years older than me, I had to keep my mouth shut all the time because, I mean, they were great mechanics and they're not gonna, but they never went to school and they never hit the books. They did all the hands-on mechanics. Nothing wrong with that, but they're missing something important. How does this engine really work? I studied refrigeration, air conditioning systems on cars. 3 months, air conditioning, overhauled every compressor imaginable, just the air conditioning side. Then electrical, 3 months, low voltage, still electrical. All of it applies to buildings. Everything I learned applied to buildings. When I started running buildings, I applied everything I knew from cars to buildings because it was ingrained really young and I hit the books. So you're missing something if all you're learning is on the job. That's half the battle on the job. You learn a lot on the job, but you got to have the book open. So you study the book and then you go to the job, you take a course, you study the book, you go back to the job and you apply what you just read about controls. In the old days, pneumatics, right? Now DDC and beyond DDC. You study it, you go to your building, okay, where's that DDC panel at? I just studied this, open the panel, just don't get electrocuted, obviously, but you have to be real cautious and safe in buildings. It's a huge issue. People get killed. Building engineers get killed every year. Quite a few building engineers get killed every year. I've known several that have been killed in Denver over the last 40 years. Several. That went into a panel, low voltage panel, VDC, open it up, here's a high voltage side before it steps down, zap, right? And 120 will do just as much harm as 480. So you always got to be, hit the books, study electrical, study that safety, not just on the job. The books are critical. I drive this point home so hard. How many times have I said it today in this group? 10 or 20. I might say it another 10 or 20. To make a point in this world, you got to repeat yourself in the position I'm standing in up here. You got to repeat what you're saying over and over and over, and then people will get it. Everybody, after you hear this, I don't care how old you are, no excuses here. being older, I've already done. Now, I know I said I don't do the night school yet, but I'm hitting Harvard Business Review. I own a company, I run a company. My God, I'm reading constantly. I don't have time for courses anymore with the company that I have, right? Get back to basics of HVAC. You don't have to go into the advanced part of HVAC. Just many people never learn the basics because they didn't have any books. It was all on the job training. Get the basics from the books. That's my main point there. Review the original sequence of operations on any building that you're running. There's an original in the drawings, mechanical drawings. There's an original sequence of operations that says, here's how this building is to be started up in the morning, here's how it's to be operated during the day, and here's how it's to be shut down at night. That's in writing verbiage in a written sequence of operations. Many people don't even know that exists in their drawings. Okay? Because nobody like me stood up here and told you that this is the way it is. Every building has a sequence of operations in writing. Dig it out, go back to your building. Even if your building's 50 years old, dig out the original sequence. Now, that was relative to pneumatics back then, so a lot of that's gonna have to be updated. That's a whole nother part of that equation of these sequences of operations. But get back to the basics for your building and understand the original sequences. Who writes the sequence of operations? The mechanical engineer that designed the building wrote that sequence. Now, the problem we're dealing with today with these mechanical engineers that write these sequences of operations, they don't write very good sequences. One thing, and I'm not bragging about my company or selling my company. I'm not here to sell my company to anybody. Our company kind of sells itself. We do good work. I have damn good people. That's the only reason. It's not me. It's my people. It's not me. I don't do the work. I run the company. I do no work. I do no billable work. 4 hours a week. Out of a 55-hour week, I bill out 4 hours a week. I'm overhead, right? My people are the ones that do this stuff and do it damn good. And you guess what? And half my people are blue collar. Half of my employees are blue collar background, no college. The other half are mechanical engineers. And we've combined the best of both worlds. Blue collar experts, mechanical engineers, boom, in my company. Solving problems in buildings. Understanding these sequences. We're commissioning brand new buildings. We read the sequence when we're commissioning it in pre-design. We're like, oh, terrible sequence. This is like 95% of the buildings we commission. Complex hospitals. You think the mechanical engineer would know how to write a sequence for how to start the building, how to maintain, how to manage the energy, how to run the ORs, how to run the pressurization systems and exhaust systems and cascading pressure systems and research labs, which we commission a lot of, and in hospitals. These are very complicated buildings. And they write these horrible sequences. Well, who do you think rewrites them? My people, my employees rewrite every sequence and sits down with the mechanical engineer and says, okay, you got this doesn't even cover it. Siemens or Johnson or whoever is gonna have no clue what this means. And now they're gonna interpret your sequence and they're not gonna do a very good job interpreting it. And now the owner of this hospital is not going to get what they think they're paying for. These things have to be written correctly, and they're almost never written correctly. If you're building any new buildings today or in the future, this is a key point to keep you out of trouble on that building working right when it opens. Review the original design intent. I'm not going to belabor too much of this because we've got a lot more slides. That's another one. What was the mechanical engineer's original design intent for this building? You have to know that when you take over the operation of this building. Let automation do its job. Now, the other thing I'm going to say about automation is that we can't automate ourselves out of this issue we're facing with having to raise Energy Star scores. We can automate a lot of that, but everybody thinks automation is going to save the day to raise my Energy Star scores. Well, it's half the battle in my view. It will save the day, no doubt. But if you don't have sharp building operators, I'll just give you an example. When I ran the cash register, I had 7 building engineers. 1987 to 1994. I had 7 building engineers. I had an amazing crew. I had a master electrician. I had a couple of H. Johnson experts. I had a sharp crew. I mean, that's 1 million square feet, so big budget, big operating budget. I pay people damn good money. I got paid damn good money. So the bigger buildings, you kind of have that luxury. I understand that. You have suburban buildings and Some of you might have 10 buildings with one building engineer. That's a tough spot to be in. Still can be managed. You can still do it. You gotta get it. It's a little different than having 7 really sharp people in house. But if you don't, in that crew, I had one real ace controls person. This was pneumatics back then. I had an ace pneumatics expert, and I had an old Johnson JC85. If anybody remembers the history of Johnson, and back in the 70s, it was a JC80, 80s with JC85, then Metasys, and it's still Metasys today, right? I had an ace JC85 person on my staff, also knew pneumatics, same person. So I took Alan, he's still there. He's still there today. This was in 87. Alan was like 23 or 4. He was the ace. Now he's got to be in the 60s, right? He's still there. And I handpicked Alan. I did this in every building I ever ran. You identify the ace and you say, you're going to these classes. I sent him to classes. Alan, you're going to all these classes. On the job's not enough to learn. You're going to all these classes. You're going to Milwaukee, to Johnson's headquarters. Spend the damn money. People are so cheap with their damn money. Building owners, okay? Listen, building owners respect me. I wouldn't say it quite this bluntly if they were all in this audience right now. And if there is somebody in the audience, oh well, sorry. This is the truth. Right? This is the truth. Spend the damn money. This is insane. Nobody will spend $500 or $1,000 to learn DDC, to learn the latest in how automation works. And you're supposed to raise Energy Star scores? Give me a break. That doesn't work. See, a lot of this stuff I talk about, it's not working. Okay? I'm talking to Craig and, the last several years about who's doing what on training. Nobody's doing any training outside of work. Nobody's going to classes. That's insane. You're not going to get your Energy Star scores up unless you go to class. Period. I can't say it any more black and white than that. And pick somebody from your crew and send them to class. It doesn't have to be you, if you're the chief, or it doesn't have to be the chief or the assistant chief, but send, and maybe even send one of your younger people that's really ambitious and just chop it at the bit. Class. Pay for the whole darn class and pay for it in advance. Don't have them write a check in advance and get reimbursed. That's also insane. Come on, that's the dinosaur age. The person has to write a check for $1,500. That person doesn't have $1,500 to write a check. No wonder nobody's going to a class. They don't have the damn money. The owner's got the money. You don't think the owner of a $50 million building can afford to send people to a $1,000 class? That's quick. Get it in the budget. Budget season's coming up for everybody, right? Get it in the budget now. This is a serious, listen, that's a national emergency. And it's been going on forever and it's getting worse. Nobody's going to class. That drives me crazy. I just can't. How are you going to raise Energy Star scores and avoid all these penalties that are coming? Serious penalties that are coming, okay? That's kind of that's an important issue, but I'm going to skip it. Improve HVAC maintenance, cleaning coils and condensate pans and documenting it. Don't miss this one. Documenting that I cleaned the coils. I cleaned out the condensate pans. I cleaned them out. I went into all the condensate pans under every chill water coil. And I went in there with 90% water, 10% bleach. I'm not sure this is in any books. It's just all stuff. I was trained on this. I know this. Okay, I learned that with Heinz 30-some years ago, how we clean a condensate pan and how often we clean a condensate pan to avoid an indoor air quality lawsuit for negligence. And guess what happens if you get sued and you're negligent? Gross negligence. Okay, some contract law for it. Gross negligence. Haven't disinfected a condensate pan in 30 years. That is gross negligence. Smart lawyer is going to find that if people are getting sick in your building. Smart lawyer is going to find everything. That one's blatant because they're going to hire a subject matter expert, which I've done some, but I don't. I used to get called all the time for subject matter expert work. Not on this kind of thing, but on like slip and falls and that kind of thing. But they're going to hire a subject matter expert that's going to go in and see, let me see your records. When's the last time you cleaned a condensate pan? Never been cleaned. Never been cleaned. Most buildings have never been cleaned very effectively. You got to get into the corners. Sometimes you get under these 8-pass coils in these big buildings. That coil's this thick. You got to get underneath that coil. It's hard to do. It's an effort. You have to be focused. Okay, I got to get the bleach solution with a brush into every corner, get all that crap out of these pans. Otherwise, it's airborne and everybody's breathing it in. That's just one. I talk about this condensate pan. I've been talking about that for decades. Here I am today, and I'm working for another 10. I love what I do. So I'm 65. I have no retirement plans. I'm going to be talking about this for the next decade or two. And I hope somebody does something about it on your condensate pans. It'll keep you out of jail, literally. Because if you're found to be gross negligent as the chief engineer and the building operators, guess what? You're going to prison. Your company has no liability shield at that point. The shield is gone. Literally, the liability shield's gone when there's gross negligence. And people got sick in your building or even died. You're going to jail, literally. I used to put, over here, I'd have pictures of San Quentin. Okay, I stopped doing that. It's a little too dramatic. But I used to have pictures of San Quentin and a couple other jails over here, people sitting in jail cells to drive this point home. I teach at DU. I did that on a bunch of classes at DU with the younger kids that are at DU, right? And they needed to, they kind of needed to see that because everybody here has got experience. You want to watch college kids. But the college kids needed to see the jail cells and learn early. You have a duty to protect your building occupants. The condensate pans are part of that. Okay. Study courses, already said that. Pay for all the training. Next slide. I like to think a lot of my points are key points. I try not to talk about anything that's not a key point. Why would I? You don't want to hear non-key points.
I'm just going to add that last slide. We touched on a few personal things that we've gone through with our company on just keeping up the building. I run into it every week. Different commercial properties where insurance is lapsed. Like you said, they haven't kept up. There's mold that they just painted over, and they don't want to pay them to get it taken care of. And like, well, I can't help you. I kept my time for that. Right? We're not going to come and tear that out.
You're making a great point because companies often try to do stuff really cheap and not get rid of that mold the right way, not remediate it the right way. And not put their people at risk that work for them. Don't do, I mean, if you're working for that kind of a company that isn't gonna do the right thing and protect you and protect you that runs the building and your occupants, I go somewhere else. I never worked there. Never worked for a company like that. I know I've been fortunate. Listen, I know I've been fortunate that I've never had to work for a company like that because most people probably have. And I guess I'm lying. In my very early career, I did work for a company right after I was at the Hilton. I was 20, by that time, what was I? 26. It was my first chief engineer's job. 2 big buildings downtown coming out of the ground here. 216 16th Street and 1875 Lawrence. And I won't say which building, but actually it happened in both buildings. I remember it now. Property manager had me mixing my own chemicals. I was buying the condenser water treatment from Monsanto and 55-gallon drums of powder. Powdered condenser water treatment. And then he had a scientist he knew that was mailing me biocides to put in the towers. Each person would mail. He was a chemist, didn't know anything about HVAC. So guess what happened to my cooling towers in both buildings? Algae like you've never seen. Shut down the chillers in the middle of the summer, and now they have to be acid cleaned, right? So now we have no air conditioning in these Class A office buildings for 4 days. I'm in the property manager's office the next day. I'm like, Greg, I followed all the instructions, mixed all the chemicals, never advised doing it this way, and shut down the chillers. We cannot do this anymore. I'm done mixing chemicals. I'm done doing all that crap. Okay? Take a crowbar to your wallet. Okay, property manager, pry it open and pull some $1,000 bills out, and we're going to hire Nelco or whoever. We're going to hire somebody who knows what they're doing. I'm not doing it anymore. Okay, that's not, so I have worked for, trust me, this particular individual had me doing all sorts of crazy stuff like that, but I was 26 and I've never worked for another company like that since then. That was enough. Okay, next. Oh, we're on the next one. Good. Stay ahead of city, state, federal regs, building codes and standards. This is enormous today. these regs, these regulations are changing so quick. And Denver's like at the forefront of all this change. So the electrification of buildings, I don't want to, I never like to put anybody on the spot, so I'm not going to ask that question. I should say who's not heard of that. But electrification of buildings is a big deal that's coming rapidly. If you've never heard of it, you should be writing it down or putting it in study up on electrification of buildings. City of Berkeley, my company does a lot of work for University of California, Berkeley. We do a lot of work for Stanford University. We do a lot of work in the Bay Area in general. And the city of Berkeley was the first city to ban natural gas in new homes and buildings. No more natural gas. 2-3 years ago, Berkeley was the first city to do that. We're commissioning buildings for University of Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley. That's a challenge. No more natural gas, no boilers, no water heaters that are natural, everything electric, right? So the city of Berkeley and now the city of Denver is doing the same thing right now. City of Seattle, right now. This is, I've watched this evolve in the Wall Street Journal and other national papers and journals. This thing wasn't on anyone's radar a few years ago. It was on mine because I knew about it in Berkeley. And now it's all over the news. You're starting to hear about this. No more gas, right? I'm not opposed to that. What I am opposed to is it being unreasonably mandated by Denver or Berkeley or anybody, and then bam, live with it. Live with it, building owners. This is now your problem. I don't like that. I never liked that from any city. Ram down your throat, boom, you have to do it right now. Oh, let's bring this in there. Let's be reasonable. Sure, let's get rid of the gas, that's fine. Okay, for those that are concerned about climate and such, fine, let's get rid of the gas. I'm concerned about climate too, but I'm not freaked out about it. If I was a young person, I'd be freaked out about it. I would if I was really young, but I'm not. I'm trying to be moderate about all this stuff. Let's get all this climate under control and get all this banning of natural gas. Let's do it incrementally and thoughtfully. You can't just snap your finger and it's going to happen. What happens to your hot water heater at home? Is that going to be gone in a day? No, this is going to take years. But the cities and states are trying to make it happen a lot quicker than years. Where's all the money? How are you going to do this at home? Get rid of your gas stove, get rid of your gas water heater, get rid of your gas furnace, get rid of your gas dryer if you have a gas dryer. I used to preach how cheap gas is. I used to preach 20, 30 years ago. I've been teaching for a long time. I used to preach the benefits of converting from electric heat in buildings to a hybrid heating system with packaged boilers, because gas, here's how the numbers work right now. Here's what the cost it is. Here's what it costs to heat a building with gas versus electric heat, just toasters in the ductwork, right? Electric heat. Here's what it costs to heat a building with natural gas fired boilers versus electric heat, toasters in the ductwork versus Excel's steam in Denver, downtown Denver. Here's how much it is per million BTUs. Gas is about $5 today to heat a building. Electric's about 40. That's a major order of magnitude difference, right? So I've known these numbers. I had a brilliant property manager, Pat Benet with Cushman & Wakefield, I think today, over at what I call the old Anaconda building, which I don't even know what the address is. I still call it the Anaconda building. The black 40s. What's it called? There you go. I just can't get that in my head. I got Anaconda. That was an oil and gas company way back. It was named after Anaconda Oil and Gas. And I'm not an oil and gas advocate, right? Listen, I want to see the pollution cleanup. I'm huge on this, but I want to see these regulations being more phased in. Let's give people a chance to budget for these things. Let's give people a chance to figure out. I mean, there's going to be a lot of unintended consequences if we knee-jerk into anything. There's unintended consequences. One of them on the electrification issue is we saw it down in Texas. Everybody's freezing down in Texas when the power went out. If you have gas as a backup, like I have a really expensive fan-powered gas-fired fireplace that can heat my entire house with natural gas. And I have a generator, a small generator. I can hook the motor up to my generator, I can heat my house. We could be without power for the whole winter. I can heat my house and my fireplace. If we ban gas, there's no backup. Okay, unintended consequence, just as an example. We don't knee jerk into these regulations and bam, you're stuck with it. And now you're freezing because you have no backup. Let's think this through and let's figure out how do we get the backups. What happens with electrification, if you can't have a gas-fired boiler, everything's going to be heat pumps for heating and cooling, right? Old heat pump systems. Variable refrigerant flow systems, which are very popular today in new construction, VRFs, which is heat, they're heat pumps. Maybe heating, refrigeration cycle is normal cycle for cooling, reversing valve reverses the cycle for heating, right? That's what heat pump, how they work. But this is where electrification is going. Everything's gonna be heat pumps. I'm okay with that, that's fine. It's gonna be $40 per million BTUs versus 5. So all your operating budgets are gonna go way the hell up on these utilities, but be prepped for it. Don't just all of a sudden, oh my God, look at my utility bill. No, prep for it, budget for it. Let's do this over several years. Some people are panicking at this point to try and get these regs in place. Now that's fine, because if they weren't doing that, nobody'd be doing it and we'd have no change. We'd have gas-fired boilers forever. So somebody's got to be on that extreme that's pushing this. We need that. We need that. But the extreme knows that they have to be moderated. And they are being moderated through BOMA, through IRM, through IFMA, you know, all the, which I'm involved in BOMA pretty heavily. I don't have much time, so I shouldn't say heavily. I used to be heavily involved in BOMA. They still call me about it, technical. And so this is moderation. The key to life is moderation. Financial penalties are coming. Carbon taxes. How's our time, Kelly? Okay. Carbon taxes. A carbon tax, which is going to happen at some point everywhere. There's going to be carbon tax on residential and commercial and industrial and institutional buildings. Every building type is going to pay carbon tax at some point fairly soon. In the next 5 to 10 years, that's fairly soon. Next 5 to 10 years. Here's what a carbon tax is. You take your kilowatt hours on your utility bill, multiply times the tax. Okay? Whatever that tax is. It was projected if the carbon tax passed in the state of Colorado, Republic Plaza, the big 56-story building downtown here, Republic Plaza's carbon tax would have been almost $10,000 a month, $120 a year, added to the utility budget. It's a carbon tax. So why are they doing carbon tax? Well, it's to incentivize the bill here. Here's the problem. You know, buildings aren't doing very much to improve their Energy Star scores. Trina Mannigan, who runs that whole thing for the city, who I know very well. I've sat on some committees with her. I've sat on some committees with the Denver City Council on a lot of these topics. BOMA sent me on to represent BOMA on these committees, not eCube, my company. I do this for BOMA, and I don't get paid to do any of that. I don't want to get paid. I love helping any way I can. I don't need to get paid for it. I don't care. And it's easy for me to say because I do make damn good money, right? It's easy for a guy like me to say that, but I'm not charging anybody. I'm not charging anybody to talk to you guys today. My wife years ago, are you charging people? 20 years ago, I'm speaking like, charging? Honey, I'm never charging. I'm not charging, and I don't plan to charge. She's like, but look at the time you put into preparing it. No, I do this to help the industry. I do this to help people. Okay. My podcast closes with the same, every time I close my podcast with one simple thing that I say. My grandfather literally drilled this into us when we were kids. If you helped somebody, my brother taped in the old days with a cassette recorder in 1982, a few months before my grandfather died, 1982 in Chicago. My brother recorded him and interviewed him. My brother Jim, who lives here, we called him Pop. He said, Pop, after about a 3-hour interview on cassette, I have the cassette now on MP3 converted. And he said, Pop, how would you sum up your life? He said, well, Jim, this is a pretty hardcore South Side Chicago guy, right, who's in his 80s. Well, Jim, I always believe that if you help someone, you did something good. So you should be helping people, all people, all people. Okay, all colors, all religions, all everything. We should be helping people. Why wouldn't we? What's the point in not helping people? So if I can help you with these kind of presentations, Pop's going to be pretty happy about that. And that is a really good way to live your life, helping others. Financial penalties are coming, just know they're coming. Carbon taxes, there's all sorts of financial penalties coming for not improving your Energy Star scores. for not improving your Energy Star scores. Katrina Madigan's been tracking them for 4 years now. You've been sending the data in, right? You send in your utilities. The city's been benchmarking your Energy Star scores. She's looking at them. Guess what? The Energy Star scores are getting worse. So they've tried it on a voluntary basis. Okay, everybody, send us your scores. And maybe what they're not making crystal clear is, okay, everybody, if these don't improve, we're going to fine the hell out of you. They've never said that. But I know her, and I know what the city's doing. I've been on these panels with the president of the city council, who's no longer president, Joe Clark, was president for 2 years. I started warning people years ago, they're going to penalize the hell out of everybody for these scores not going up. And I was saying that 3-4 years ago. I was one of the only people saying it. Penalties are coming. Now they're telling everybody. Now it's being enacted. Now it's going to happen. And Beaumont, everybody has pushed them back and got the penalties reduced. But they were looking at $1,000 a day penalty. Was it more than that, Craig?
47,000.
Okay. For not improving your Energy Star score.
Per day. They told us, well, that was a typo.
47,000? Yeah, that's insane. I mean, 1,000 a day is insane. 1,000 a day is a big number, right? 1,000 a day times 200 business days, right? 200,000 a year penalty for this small little building. For a big building, that's a complete budget buster for a 1 million square foot building, a $200,000 hit, huge budget buster. So, but you see, this is the extreme. I understand, and I think that building owners and everybody's going to have to get pushed into this. Nobody's raising their scores. Nobody's investing. Nobody's doing it. The scores aren't improving. That doesn't make sense to me. I know why. It's more work and it's hard to do, and it takes, you got to be trained. You got to have aces in your crew. You got to be studying. It all goes back to training and studying. Trust me. You want to improve Energy Star scores? I'm saying that for the 8th time now. You want to avoid these penalties? Get your people trained. Be on the cutting edge. Be on the forefront. Don't start getting invoices that you literally have to pay. You're going to be getting invoices for these penalties, and you're going to have to write checks and mail them in. This is to the government. They have a lot of leverage if you don't send them those checks. Right? You should be well versed in all these ASHRAE standards. These are the 4 biggies. Okay? Indoor air quality is 62, ventilation. 55 is thermal comfort, thermal conditions, comfort, temperature, humidity, etc. On the psychrometric chart, air filtration is 52.1 and energy efficiency is 90.1. These are the 4 biggest ASHRAE standards that everybody in this room should be familiar with, and if you're not, you need to study these up one side, down the other one. Okay, next slide. And when I say hit the books and study, do this over the next few years. This is going to happen or a month or 6 months, but you got to start doing it now and get this knowledge into your heads over the next few years. Okay, qualifications-based selection process. You want to get your Energy Star scores up? You want to improve the quality of your building or your house for that matter? You're putting a furnace in your house. You're putting a roof on your house. Let's just use that example. You're putting a new roof on your house. You had hail damage. You're going to have the worst roofing contractor put that new roof on, or do you want the best? How do you find the best? You call your insurance broker and you say, who is, what's that? I said, we're right here. There you go. Right way roofing, there you go. But you'll still have to pre-qualify them. You have to pre-qualify everybody. I mean, seriously, no knock on you guys or anything. Everybody's got to be pre-qualified. They put a roof on your house. You talk to 3-4 firms. You first start with your insurance agent. Okay, Andy, who is the best roofing contractor in Denver that can replace my roof? And your insurance person should know that. And then you hire that company. You don't hire the person that rang your doorbell that says, hey, I know there's a lot of hail damage here. I can do your roof. And then you have them do it and they screw it all up. You didn't pre-qualify them. This is another major issue. You want to get Energy Star scores up, get your control systems upgraded, get it all done right. You have the best companies do this work, not the worst. You got to know how to find them. So this is all kind of goes without saying, right? Fiduciary duty. This is kind of the last key point on this slide. In business and in property management and building operations, etc., Everybody, so when you're a building engineer or a property manager, you have a fiduciary duty you may not even be aware of. Look it up, don't look it up right now, but look it up later. Type in fiduciary duty of a building operator, fiduciary duty of a property manager, okay? Fiduciary duty simply means you are obligated in your job to protect your owner's best interests. Protect their interests. Don't throw a bunch of money away on bad vendors and get bad work done on the building. You have fiduciary duty to hire the right vendors to do good work. That's your fiduciary duty. Your fiduciary duty is not necessarily to hire the low bid. Now, every company's, got unwritten and written policies on this low bid thing. I've done more single sourcing to the best. This is one reason I run good buildings and have a reputation for running good buildings and knowing how to run good buildings. I have single sourced many contracts with my ownership from Prudential or whoever the institution was. GE, now today it's Google and Facebook and these folks, all that billions they have in reserve, that's all invested in real estate. So if I'm sitting in the room with Facebook or Google and they got, 100 million in this building, I'm saying, okay, Facebook or Google, you've invested all this money. I've got these firms doing these specialties I'm single sourcing to because they're the only ones I trust. They're the only ones that are going to do a damn good job. Because I've used the other 10 and I didn't like any of them. Now this is blunt, but this is experience. And guess what? I got these institutions looking at me going, Joe, that's great. You know what you're doing. Now you gotta, listen, you gotta know what you're talking about for them to say, that's fine. And I got it blessed and did it for decades.
Hey, Joe, so
Okay.
we've hit the time limit, but
Okay.
I think what we should do is allow people the
Sure.
option to go if they need to or stay if they want to continue on.
Sounds good.
Because I've had some people saying,
Okay.
don't stop it.
Right, okay. No, go ahead, that's fine.
So
That
if you
sounds
need
good.
to leave, feel free.
Sure.
But otherwise, you're welcome to stay and listen.
And throughout the yellow parking voucher.
Yeah, parking vouchers
Thanks.
are on the page front table.
Thank all of you. I thank you very much for being here today.
The remainder will still be on YouTube, so they can always catch up.
Sure. Great.
Sorry that
I'm glad to see you sitting in the front Oh, yeah. Don't forget. All right, man. Good to see you. All right, take care. Okay, man, we're clear the room out, right? What time is it?
5 after 1.
Oh, no wonder.
Yeah, Stephen.
Yeah, see, I know I can kind of.
You should just schedule nice one. You'll sit here, yeah. All right.
My message gets across to one person in my audience. In the class I teach, one person really gets it.
All right.
Because that's one more than would have had it. It's one more person that would have happened otherwise.
All right, Judy.
Okay.
Back to you.
Okay, everybody. Well, thank you to all of you that have stayed. And I don't take it personally at all people leaving. As a matter of fact, somebody might have said something sooner. Yeah. People got your back to work. That's a critical thing. Oh, yeah. Okay, so let's continue now, you guys. Let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
Next slide.
Fine. Here we go.
So manage indoor air quality. Now listen, you want to get your Energy Star scores up? In life, there's ways we do not do things. It's just as valuable to learn how do I not do this? How should I not be doing this? That's extremely valuable. Understand the difference between doing something the right way and doing it the blatantly wrong way. Okay? I mean, in my 20s and 30s, my God, I learned so much about how not to do it. This is the mixing your own chemicals, how not to do it. That's a great example. It's the worst way to do water treatment. And I did it. And my Lord, that is the worst. That's valuable for me to know that, because then I'm standing there in the manager's office saying, I'm not doing this anymore. This isn't working for me. We have got to go from spending $1,000 a year to spending $10,000 a year on the water treatment. We need to increase the budget 10 times. No debate. That's what we have to do. And we did do it. And he did approve it. Right? So how do we not manage it? How do we do a poor job managing IAQ? A really poor job? Well, there's a lot of examples, but it all centers around, okay, if I cut back on outside air when it's 0 degrees out, because outside air is our ventilation air, right? That's what, in HVAC, the acronym, you'd be surprised, all the classes I teach on this, fundamentals, HVAC, everybody knows what the H is, that's heating. Many people have no idea what the V stands for, and they confuse it, because I test, all the class I teach, quizzes, tests, exams, and it's wrong. And this is after me. This is after I explain it. It's still wrong. The answers are still wrong. H is heating, the V is ventilation, and the AC is air conditioning. So everybody knows what heating and air conditioning is, but many people confuse what is ventilation. Okay, it's outside air. We have to bring outside air into the building. That's ventilation air, and we have to exhaust too. That's part of it too. Fresh air, exhaust air. That is ventilation. We purge. We bring in fresh air through the office. We purge the exhaust out, get all this crap out of the building, purge it. That's ventilation, right? Here's how not to do it. I got to get my Energy Star score up, or it's 0 out and I've got cold calls, or it's 5 degrees out and I have cold calls, or I'm in Phoenix and it's 120 and I have hot calls, right? And I'm going to cut back on ventilation air, or I'm going to just close it. I'm just going to close the ventilation air. A couple days, that's all. I'm only going to close it for a couple days. Do you know how many buildings I've gone into and looked at the ventilation? And they close it for a hot spell or a sub-zero spell. They close the ventilation off and never reopen it. Ran for years. That's insane. Come on. You don't do that. That's an extreme example, right? But the less extreme example is, well, I'm trying to get my Energy Star score up. Let's just cut it back a little bit. Let's just tweak back the ventilation. Rather than bringing in 100,000 CFM of 120 degree air, let's bring in 80,000. We'll just cut back 20,000. Below the ASHRAE required standard and below what the law requires. We'll just cut it back a little bit. Nobody will ever know. We'll get our score up. No, you don't do that. Come on. IAQ comes before energy. It's the law, for crying out loud. It's the code. The thing about codes, and it was on the previous slide, we got building codes and building standards. ASHRAE writes the standards. I showed that ASHRAE 62.1 is the ventilation standard. The building code is the law, right? The International Energy Conservation Code or the International Building Code. These are codes. These are law. Code is law. There's no debate. You have to meet the law. You can't break the law of these building codes. If the IBC or the IECC, International Energy Conservation Code, point to an ASHRAE standard, it's now the law. The standard is not law until the code says, follow this standard. The standard writing organizations aren't writing codes, they're writing standards. There's a big difference between a code and a standard. And the moral of that story is if somebody says you have to meet this oddball standard and the code doesn't say you have to meet it, like your insurance company comes in, they're famous for this. You have to meet this fire standard, this NFPA standard. And if the code in Denver doesn't say you have to meet NFPA, you don't necessarily have to do what that, you can say to the insurance person, but Denver doesn't require that. Now, if they say, well, we do, we're the insurance company, then you're stuck. And you do have to do what the insurance company says, right? But it's not the law unless the code says it, points to the standard. All right? Okay, next slide. I think we're getting towards the end. Is that it?
Yeah.
Manage occupant comfort, IQ, and energy. So it's a triangle. Okay, it's a balancing act. We don't just manage energy and get our Energy Star score up and ignore comfort of our occupants and ignore indoor air quality and close the outside air. No. All three of these have to be managed together. IAQ, you have to meet the minimum requirements. on the cold days and the hot days, this ASHRAE standard says on the cold days and hot days, it doesn't say verbatim, I'm simplifying. You have to run this minimum. You cannot go below this minimum. Now, okay, we have fires and there's smoke in the air for a few days. Sometimes you close the outside air up for that, but it's a risk that you don't reopen it. Now there's a transition in management. Somebody else takes over management. You just closed them the day before, the new management company comes in the next day, and they don't know you shut down the outside air because it's smoky outside, right? I've gone into buildings in Southern Cal from the fires out there, where there's this queen over all the outside air dampers because when they close them, they still leak a little bit, right? You're still bringing in smoke from leakage, unless they're rusting CD50 dampers, which have jam seals, right? So we got a damper blade that's doing this, and there's rubber seals on these tips, but the jam has nothing, right? This is the jam that's opening and closing in, right? If this jam doesn't have a seal, we're gonna have a lot of leakage. So I'm a big advocate. And Ruskin, I was putting Ruskin CD50s in as a retrofit in every building that I ever managed. I got rid of the old crappy, cheap, ridiculous dampers, took them out, spent the money, got it approved, put in Ruskin CD50s. The Ruskin CD50 is still around today. It's still a super high quality damper because it has a jam seal. It's got like a beveled seal here that seals it all up. But even it still leaks a little if there's smoke out in the air. So some people Visqueen over to get rid of all that leakage. I went into buildings in Southern Cal where the Visqueen was over the ventilation dampers for 5 years. Forgot the Visqueen on the ventilation dampers. Never had any fresh air for 5 years with all these occupants in there. That's, come on. You know, I know these are extreme examples, but the fact is I've seen this. This stuff happens. Don't let it happen in your building. IAQ management should second bullet, should always be the top priority. Now, comfort is the number one reason occupants leave a building, right? All the BOAC surveys, number one reason somebody goes from this building to that building is because they were hot and cold, calling all the time, and it never got fixed. That's the number one reason people leave buildings. Has been for decades, still is today. Roma resurveys this stuff every year. The survey comes back every year, top complaint, comfort. So that's top. IAQ is top, and energy efficiency in my book is third. Now, technically, it's 1A, B, and C because they're all top. But there's an A, B, and a C. Comfort's A. Well, with the pandemic now, I don't know if I'd still say that. I don't know. But comfort and IAQ, you know, it's hard to say, but they're right there, and then energy's right behind it. Even when you're being pushed in these fines, comfort, if you react to these fines and penalties and you blow comfort, right, you can save too much energy. So there's two ways we manage energy, right? You can go overboard with saving energy, and now all your occupants are unhappy. Run the building in the summer at 80 degrees, run it in the winter at 50, you're gonna save a ton of energy. You're gonna have a really low utility bill. You're not gonna have any tenants though, because you don't have comfort. But listen, people do this. People do this, take it to the extreme. I gotta save energy. I gotta get my Energy Star score up. I'm gonna run the building hot in the summer. I'm gonna run it cold in the winter, and I'm gonna say, man, I'm not gonna have any penalties from the city. This is what's gonna happen. Okay, we'll be talking about this in a few years. We're gonna have cases. There's gonna be a lot of buildings sacrificing comfort to get their scores up.
Well, Joe, do you think that
You can't do that.
because of what the CDC requires and actually recommending, because of COVID, that we pushed it to 30% on outside air? Is that going to be understandable?
Well, it's going to affect Energy Star scores, and hopefully that all gets leveled out in the scores, and it doesn't hurt, because now you have to run whatever the new law is, so to speak.
Well, that's what I meant. I mean, it's not a law now, it's still a recommendation.
Sure.
But
ASHRAE 62 could change, and it could be changed and put into ASHRAE 62 and increase the amount of ventilation required because of the pandemic. It could change, and that's going to raise your energy. It's going to hurt your Energy Star scores. And it's going to hurt comfort potential. So again, these three, you got to know this stuff inside out to manage these three together. They got to be managed in a triangle. All right, let's see. One more slide. Yeah, that's the podcast. That's my episode 2. Just Google The Future of Buildings with Joe Havey. It's on all the major podcast apps: Apple, Google, Spotify, and I forget the third, but it's on there. I have 3 episodes that are live. I'm interviewing Roderick Jackson next week, who is African-American, brilliant gentleman, who's the head guy in Golden of the National Renewable Energy Labs Buildings Group, the application of renewable energy in buildings. There's a lot of applications of renewable energy, right? Cars, et cetera, wind, solar, I mean, all this, there's many applications of renewable. But the application of how can we use renewable energy systems in buildings, Roderick is the head guy in that. Georgia Tech bachelor's degree, Georgia Tech master's degree, Georgia Tech PhD in his 30s, head guy. He's become a good friend of mine over the last 5 or 6 years. I'm interviewing Roderick next week on my podcast. So it's a plug for my podcast, yes. But you know what? I can get the word out on all this stuff I'm talking to you nationally and worldwide via my podcast. That's why I'm doing it. So I encourage you to subscribe to the podcast, listen to it. They're 30 to 40 minutes long, and you'll probably learn a few things. I mean, these are the cutting edge people that I'm interviewing. And then I throw in my 2 cents throughout the whole interview, and I augment. You know, when I teach classes, usually at DU, when I teach classes, I have the students teach the class. I don't stand up here and talk in my classes at DU at all. And the first night I do. After that, never get up the front of the class again. I sit with everybody else, and I have the students come out and teach it. You get paid to do that. Yeah, I do. Not very much. No, being an adjunct professor doesn't pay much. The tenured professors make damn good money, not the adjuncts. But that's the thing, you know, I augment. So if a student misses a key point, I'm sitting there with the rest of them. I say, well, great, nice job, but now here's a key point I want to add to what you just said, and I make sure they get points. They miss key points a lot, right? Well, of course they're going to miss key points. They're just reading. You know, I live this stuff. I know this stuff. They're just reading it, and they're trying to. So I augment a lot with my guests that are on the podcast, and I think it's pretty decent. It seems to be getting some traction, so I encourage you to listen to it, and subscribe, and then like it too, you know, all that stuff. Now I'm 65, trying to explain to you what to do. Tatiana can tell you a lot better than me on what you need to do with my podcast. I'm trying to tell you what to do. I wish she was there with me. She'd say, she's got a great accent. That would do some bad, you know, she's brilliant. That's it.
We'll post on our LinkedIn for your podcast.
What's that?
We'll put it on our LinkedIn, so that way everyone can
Right.
find it and subscribe.
Oh, okay, good. That'd be great.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm done. Any questions?
Hey, Joe, there's one thing, you keep on bringing up with the Energy Star scores, Energy Star scores.
Yep.
Everybody's gonna get hurt. What needs to happen, and it has to come from Energy Stars, the fact that when they adjust the matrix, like they do every single year, they need to take into account the COVID impact, that take into account all these anticipated, so it's not necessarily that we're losing our scores, we're not running our building as efficient as possible, because a lot of us engineers have got our buildings running as tight as we possibly can, and every time they adjust the metrics, we lose a point, we lose 2 points, 3 points.
And that's why they're going down.
That's why they're going down, but the energized Denver isn't gonna see that, they're not gonna
Right.
care.
No, they're
They're
not.
just gonna register as a loss, so what they need to do is say, we made these adjustments to
Sure.
the metrics, that these should coincide with what we did. Maybe we go
Right.
horizontally or we go up a point, but
Well, we need guys like Craig. You know, Craig is involved in a lot of this stuff that I'm involved in too, you know, Craig is a real bright guy. So you need a guy like Craig, and he's making sure that the involved in everything else and BOAC, that Craig's one of the aces here that needs to make sure they understand. And believe me, I'm one of them too, that's trying to make it very clear.
Now, we're going through codes right now, so it's just starting, the different committees are coming on, so we'll see some changes with that. But I think Stephen is working on he's part of the committee on the state benchmarking part of it too. Yeah. So, yeah.
We got all over. Doesn't mean it's, you know, listen, so it's kind of like Craig and Stephen, they got pretty bold.
this is gonna be one of those, duly noted, confident more.
Well, but let me show you that there's always 2 sides to every coin, right? So the other side of that coin is you guys are doing everything you can, but the problem, this is why building owners are getting themselves behind the 8 ball with Berkeley and Denver and Seattle, et cetera. They're not seeing the scores go up, they're seeing them go down for the reasons you're talking about, I understand that. But who's doing an LED lighting retrofit? Who's doing that? It's no brainer. Very few people are doing that on older buildings.
Not everybody's done that.
Hardly anybody's done that. No, the LED is still, maybe 5 or 10% of older buildings have done it LED.
I need one. And over 3,000 square feet.
What I'm saying, listen, the payback on this 2 years, 3 at the most, it improves the aesthetic of the building, it lowers the energy, but nobody's investing in these LED lighting retrofits. And so that is gonna improve an Energy Star score, right? So the but operating smarter and all that, no investment. I'm a big believer in that, by the way. Let's operate this building smarter. On Saturday, it says in the lease, we have to run HVAC 8 to 1, right? I don't do that. I email and call every tenant in my building and say, okay, and then, some of the bigger buildings, that's 100 tenants, get them all on board. Hey, 100 tenants, 5,000 people in the cash register, right? Hey, 100 tenants. I know your lease says 8 to 1, I have to run all these air handlers, but nobody's here. So I know it would violate the lease for me to turn it off, but if you tell me and I document it, you say, we'll request it if we have somebody coming in. Otherwise, don't run the HVAC on Saturdays. That's 52 Saturdays of these massive fan systems running. You think that saves some energy with zero investment? We're not investing in an LED lighting retrofit. We're just not running the air handlers on Saturday. Less runtime on the equipment, less maintenance on the equipment, less wear and tear on the equipment, less energy used. Zero cost or investment to do that. Just that one measure.
I got a question. I like the presentation, and like you, I've done all my designations, got my college degree. That really helped me on my job where we're 90+ Energy Star, we're gonna be certified for LEED Platinum here.
Nice.
For an old building, so that's a really big accomplishment for me and my team. The part of that came from learning, wanting to learn. So what are we gonna do when we're like, how are we gonna improve that 90+ Energy Star score?
Sure.
And I'm thinking after these property managers get fined, this electrification, and people are gonna want to go learn, they're gonna want to go learn electricity, HVAC, so.
Right.
We had to fix that demand.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the government, local, state, federal, right? These penalties are coming from all 3 of the above over the next 10 years, big time. And, it's kind of like if you hurt somebody in their wallet. So for example, you have a contractor that does bad work and you don't pay him the money. You hold back 10% retainage. We hire contractors in commercial level and institutional. In hospital building, we hire contractors who pay, we hold back 10%. And then at the end of the job, if it was a $2,000 job, right, I'm sitting on $200 as leverage. If it was a $200 million job, I'm sitting on $20 million as leverage. For them to get the damn job done and get it done right, leverage, hurt them in the wallet, hurt them in the damn pocketbook. You're not getting your 20 million until this is all fixed. These 500 items that we find on big hospitals, my firm will find 2,000 significant problems that now we not only found them, now we have to get them all resolved. And so now the owner we work for holds back 20 million and says, okay, eCube found these items, Johnson Controls, Siemens Controls, whoever, right? Fix them all and we'll give you your 20 million. Fix all of them. I don't want one open item out of those 2,000 these guys and gals found. It's leverage. City's doing the same thing with these penalties. They're hurting, they're gonna hurt you in the pocketbook to get your attention, to get this done. To do the LED lighting retrofit, to replace motors with high efficiency motors, whatever, to spend some real money. So owners will do it. Owners, you're not gonna have a choice. Anything else? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.